And this game is all about enjoying a nice cup of tea and forgetting about all your worries. Just like with most Bunch Shy games, this one isn't a table hog or anything like that. It's only going to be comprised of a small deck of cards, which is easy to transport in this handy little card wallet. And I do want to thank the publisher here because they were kind enough to send me a prototype copy of the game, and this is what it looks like all set up. Basically, there's two different types of cards offered in this game. There are your T cards, and they come in two different forms. They are either in their focus state, which is represented by this beige teapot at the top of the card. Then there is the distracted side, which of course has a red teapot. But at the start of the game, you're just going to be shuffling all these and putting the focus side face up. And then underneath them, you're going to be shuffling the other cards, which are known as the worry cards. And you're going to be putting a 1 under each of those T cards. One thing to note is that there are other T cards offered in the game, so you're only going to be using a subset of them whenever you play, which is going to add a little bit of variety from game to game. But the actual goal in this game is to try and score as many victory points as possible. And the way that you're going to be doing that is by trying to get these cards in sequential order with the 1 all the way on the left. And that's going to make any of the cards that are in order worth at least 1 victory point. But if they're also on their focus side, then they're going to be worth 2 victory points. You are also trying to get rid of these worry cards at the bottom here, and any that are still left over at the end of the game are going to be subtracting 1 point from your final score. The game gives you 8 turns in order to try and manipulate these cards and get them in order, as well as get rid of those worry cards, and at the start of each turn, you're always going to be choosing 1 worry card to flip over to its other side. And in this case, I am worried about aging. Yes, sometimes this game does hit close to home. But now that I've flipped that card, the next thing I'm going to do is resolve each worry card that is face up from left to right. Since I only have 1 face-up card right now, I'm only going to resolve this one, which does instruct me to swap a pair with any other pair. In this game, a pair means any 2 cards that are side by side, and if that referred to a group, that would be any 3 cards that are side by side. I think in this case, I'm going to try and get my 2 and my 3 as close to the left as possible, so I'm going to be swapping these 2 pairs. And then what happens is any T cards that are above a worry card are going to get flipped to their other side, which makes them distracted. And the only way to get rid of a worry card is to have a focused T card above it at this point in your turn, which means that if I left these cards exactly as they were for my following turn, then I would come back to this point, which would cause me to flip any cards above a worry card, which would include this card, which would flip it back to its focus side. And then since it is now at its focus side, that would eliminate this card. Of course, that hasn't happened yet, so I'll just put these back to the way that they were. You can kind of see how this creates the goal of trying to get the distracted T cards above the worry cards. At the end of your turn, you can optionally swap any 2 cards that are adjacent to each other, and I do have this 2 and 3 out of order, so I'll just go ahead and swap those cards. And this moves us into the second turn, where I'll just go ahead and flip this worry card, which allows me to move a pair to any other spot in the line. But you also need to remember that these are going to be resolving from left to right, which means that I have to do that action, and then I have to do the aging action again. And I don't know if this makes sense, but I think I'm going to move this 5 and 1 and swap it with this 4 and the 3. And I know I completely messed up the sequence that I had earlier, but I know on my next turn I am going to be doing these 2 actions again, plus another one, so I'm not too worried about messing it up right now. Let's just go ahead and continue with this turn. Any cards that are above one of the worry cards are going to be flipped over to the other side. And then I can optionally swap 2 cards, and I think I'm just going to swap these 2 to get them back in order. And for the next card flip, I think I'm going to flip this one because it is under a card that's in its distracted state, which will allow this one to get removed easier, I hope. This one wants me to move a group of 3 cards to another spot in the line, but of course we do have to go in sequential order here, so let's do the financial card first. And I'm going to use that to shift these 2 cards over to the right here. And then to move the group of 3, I'm going to shift all these 3 to the left, which is going to send this 4 into the spot it needs to be. And then the aging again, which requires me to swap 1 pair with another pair. And I think I'm just going to swap these 2 pairs right now because I know on my future turn I'm still going to have the financial card, which is going to force me to move a pair to another spot. So I could just do that to shift these back. The other nice thing about doing this is that all these cards are going to now flip to the opposite side, and that's not great for these 2 cards, but at least for this number 7, it's going to flip back to its focus side, which also gets rid of this worry card. Once again, I can optionally swap 2 cards, so I'm just going to swap these 2 here. Let's just go ahead and flip the next card here, which allows me to choose a group of 3 and swap the first card with the last card in that group. So first things first, let's use the financial card to slide this pair over like I said I would, which would then put these in order. And then I have to choose a group of 3 and swap the first card and the last card of the group. I'm going to choose this group, which is going to put the 3 in the right spot and the 2 over there. And then for the last action, I have to move any group of 3 to another spot in the line. I think what I'm going to do here is just slide these 3 over, because now that these cards are above those worry cards, they're going to get flipped to their focused side, which then causes these cards to get removed. Then I'm not going to swap any 2 cards here, so let's just go ahead and flip the next card. And this one's interesting because it requires me to choose a pair and then send the left card to the start and the right card to the end. But first I do have to move a pair to another spot in the line, which isn't going to help me out too much with this next action. But I guess what I could do is slide these 2 cards all the way over here, which would slide these 2 back. But now I at least have 2 of these red cards side by side. So when I go ahead and do this action to choose a pair, which is going to send this card all the way to the start, and this card all the way to the end. Sure, everything's way out of order, but at least I have 2 red cards above 2 face-up worry cards, which is then going to cause those cards to flip back over. And then these 2 cards will now get discarded. And I am going to take advantage of my card swapping, so we'll do that at the end of that turn. And you probably get an idea of how the game plays so far, but I'm just going to keep playing through this because I am having fun doing it, and we only have 2 more cards left here to flip, so let's go ahead and flip this next one. And this one allows me to swap a pair with a single card to the left or right of that pair. And I really want to get this 1 over to the left, so I'm going to go ahead and swap that pair with the 1. And that's it, so let's go ahead and flip this card to its other side. And then I'll go ahead and use my optional swap in order to swap these 2 cards. Things are looking pretty good here so far with me knowing that I have this action coming up here. So let's see what my last action is, and this is to swap an odd-numbered card with an even-numbered card. And I think that might have been exactly what I needed, because that allows me to go ahead and flip the 6 with the 7. Then I can go ahead and use this card to swap any pair with a single card beside it, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And that puts all the cards in sequential order, but unfortunately I am going to have to flip these 2 cards since there's still a worry card below them. The game ends once you have no more face-down worry cards to reveal, which is the case right now, which means that we just go ahead and move into scoring. Since all the cards are in sequential order, I do get to keep all of them, but if that wasn't the case, the ones that were out of order would need to be discarded. Let's go ahead and put those back how they were, and we'll add up the score here. So I have 4 face-up focused T cards, which are worth 2 points each, so that gives me 8. And then I have these distracted cards, which are all worth 1, so that is going to give me 11 points. Unfortunately, I do still have 2 worry cards, which are minus a point each, which puts me at a victory point total of 9. And if you're wondering where that puts me in terms of success, the game actually offers 2 modes of play. There's the standard mode and the hard mode. And I always play everything on the hard mode. And 9 points would just put me at a focused win. Nothing too fancy here, but I'll definitely do better next time. And that's how you play a nice Cuppa, a really solid solo game that I had a lot of fun playing here. I'll be hanging on to this one, and if it did look like a lot of fun to you as well, you can go ahead and check it out. I'll have it linked down below.